Well, today we're out here for a little bit of a rainy hike. Everything's wet, but one of the great benefits to that is there's nobody else, so pretty sure we'll have the trail to ourselves. I figured today would be a great opportunity to go shoot out in the rain and then also tell you how I stay warm in my van. One of the first methods of how I stay warm in my van is I like to use top quilts that are made out of goose down. The top quilts that I like to use are made from hammock gear, and they're originally for backpacking and hammock camping. I like to have my gear be really versatile, and I like to use it even in my van. It keeps me super warm. For the first 3 seasons, I like to use a 40-degree bag, and for the winter season, I use a 20-degree bag. I find that the top quilts made by hammock gear are just super high quality, and the temperature ratings are actually very generous. So if it's 40 degrees, you can generally push that down to 30 degrees. But the ambient air temperature in the van is always about 10 to 12 degrees warmer than the outside, which is a huge benefit. So you could probably get away with like a 40-degree top quilt for most of the year besides winter. The second method of how I stay warm in the van is that the van itself has 3 different layers of insulation within the walls of the van. The first layer is Reflectix, and Reflectix is typically used to reflect heat back. It's kind of a combination between bubble wrap and tinfoil, but I glued that onto the walls of my van using a 3M adhesive, and it just stays. The second layer is just a 1-inch housing insulation that I put over the Reflectix. I glued that and taped it in with some thermal tape. Normally, most people would end right there, just have 2 layers and not worry about the 3rd layer. But because I want to take this van into 4 seasons with the potential of snow, I decided to add a 3rd layer called Thinsulate. Thinsulate is really great. It's made by 3M, and it's not only a good insulator, but also a great sound deadener. As soon as I installed it in, I noticed that the road noise was much lower, as well as it being warmer in there. The best way that I could describe what Thinsulate is kind of like a thick layer of fabric that lofts a little bit, so it lofts to about 1.5 inches. It was a lot of work getting those layers installed in there, and that's probably the part that took the longest out of my whole van build. I really wanted to focus on having enough layers to keep it warm in there, and I've had great success. Last night it got down to 45, and the ambient air temperature was about 55, 56 degrees in the van, and I have no heat source in there. So it's great to know that even without a heat source, I will always be 10 to 12 degrees warmer in whichever environment that I'm in. I come from a long history of backpacking, hiking, and camping, and one of the best things that I did to stay warm out in a place like this during the evening is to have a hot drink or hot meal at night before you go to bed. Believe it or not, the extra warmth and energy that you have in your body, it heats your core up and you'll be able to stay warmer for longer. I first learned this method when I was hammock camping in the White Mountains of New Hampshire in the dead of winter. We would go snow camping, and it was just so cold. It would get down in the 20s and 10s, and in some cases even get below 0. I think that you can apply that same exact principle to living in a van, because it's basically like being outside, but you're just way more comfortable and you have more control over your microclimate. You can make it a lot warmer in there than you could in a tent. Bonus tip that I have is, in order to protect your microclimate that you've created within your van, you want to make sure that you're sealing all of the doors and windows properly so that there are no leaks anywhere. A good way that I found that I like to do that is if you go to Home Depot or Lowe's or any hardware store, they actually sell these adhesive weather strips that you put right inside the perimeter of the door or window. You put that on there, that will definitely go a long way to make sure that you don't have any drafts or anything that's robbing you of your microclimate. I don't have this yet, but one of the last things that you can do to stay warm in a van is to have some kind of heater. Some of your most energy efficient options to heat your van are a wood stove, a propane heater, or a diesel heater. Each of these have their benefits and drawbacks, which I'll discuss in a later video. But as of right now, I think I'm eventually gonna go get a small propane heater, because you don't really need much to heat a very small space. It's less than 100 cubic feet. Propane heater would probably be best for me to start, and then maybe I'll eventually shift to a diesel or wood stove. If you like this video, please consider subscribing to my channel And check out this next video over here, where I share my tips on how to become more minimalist while living in a van. I'll see you over there. Of course, the rain stops now. I'm about to leave. I'm glad I came out here today. It's actually a really nice day outside.